Okay, we'll start the committee meeting, Mr. Johnston.
Okay. So let me explain before we get started this evening. We are this evening having two meetings. First is our committee. And I just want to give explanation for anyone that's listening to these meetings on YouTube. Just giving you a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the agenda. First, we typically have these two meetings on two different nights. So if you are new to this, good. Okay. So just want to give explanation on housekeeping, since this is the first time that we're using equipment for all of our board members this evening. And we are in the multi-purpose room this evening so that we are socially distanced. I want to explain what we're doing this evening. Typically, these two meetings are held on separate nights, but tonight we are holding a committee meeting first here at 7, and then following this committee meeting will be our business meeting for the month, both of those for the month of July. So just wanted to make sure if you're new to us listening on YouTube, you know what we're doing. So first, if we could take a look at the committee meeting agenda, we'll go down to curriculum 4A. First item on the agenda is to approve a motion this evening in our business meeting, granting student number 330033 to be promoted to kindergarten. So I just wanted to explain to you as board members, we do have a policy 201 that requires that a student be 5 by September 1st in order to be in kindergarten. We do have a student that has completed pre-K and is our recommendation as administration that student go ahead and be promoted to kindergarten because the student has already completed a pre-K program. Again, just asking for that motion because we do have a policy that states that the student must be 5 by September 1st. This particular student won't be 5 until September 25th. Any questions on that one? Okay. Next on 4B, Ignite Education Solutions Services Agreement. You have that either online on your agenda manager or in your folder. That agreement is with Ignite, and it is listed at the top. If you take a look at number 2, these are Title I funds, and this is an agreement to allow Ignite to provide educational services to Northern Cambria Catholic School. It's just so you know that any of the private schools that we send students to, title funds flow through us as a district out to those private schools. So Title I funds are deserving and awarded to Northern Cambria Catholic, and it is we have to make sure that we approve the agreement for that to happen. So if you take a look, specifically says it is for Northern Cambria Catholic. If you go to page 3 of that agreement, you'll see that the total amount of Title I funds that comes into us and will go out to Northern Cambria Catholic is in the amount of $5,039.34. Questions to that? Typically 3. We average 3. Any other questions on that one? So if you're going through paper packet in the folder, I want you to take note as we go through that your packet in the folder is on double-sided. So as we go through, I'll keep you in line as to the attachment. And then if you're online, you just click at the attachment and it should appear. Next, going to 4C, to approve a dual enrollment agreement with Mount Aloysius. Last month, we approved with Penn Highlands, and Mount Aloysius has now sent their dual enrollment agreement. Just so you know, we do have 2 courses that go through Mount Aloysius for dual enrollment that our high school students can take the opportunity to enroll in. Long story short, that agreement does not charge any fee for a student to take courses dual enrollment, and the cost is $60 per credit for a student if they want to take a high school course for dual enrollment through Mount Aloysius. Questions on that one? Okay. Next, we move to budget and finance. Next, we have 5A, which is Coach Digital Renewal. That is an agreement to allow us to do online services that we used to actually order hard copy coach books that supplements PSSA testing. However, in the past few years, we've been using an online service. The cost for high school support for Coach Digital is $3,998. A motion this evening to approve that renewal. Questions on that one? I don't know the answer to that. Grimaldi? We actually, it may have decreased, I think, because we reduced numbers of licenses. So actually, I think it's down. Am I correct? Other questions on that? Okay. Next, 5B, and also has an attachment. It's to approve Microsoft license to renew programs for our servers and also Windows PCs. And that's to give us access to all of our users on our servers. The total cost for the Microsoft license is $7,662.60. And that is the same. On that item. Okay. Moving to the next on the agenda, 5C, Edgenuity Renewal. That is all pertaining to our Penns Manor Cyber Academy. So if you take a look at that actual handout, you will see the total amount. It has the total amount on the back. The total amount is $6,674. And if you look, that is for our first 10 users. That's usually what we average for students in our school district that is in our cyber school. And if we would increase numbers, by all means, that amount would increase also. But at this point, we're renewing at the same amount that we've had in the past. Questions on that item? Well, they will sell it in packages of 10. So sometimes but they will sell single. But honestly, if you buy it in packages of 10, you get a better. Other questions?
The package here is only for the cyber folks enrolled in cyber school. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we can adjust this
yes.
as the year goes on because right now we don't know how many cyber students we would see fall.
Yes, correct. Yep. Other questions on that? Okay. Next, 5D, approved school physician. If you take a look, handout 5D, that's working with Clymer Family Medicine as we have in the past. Clymer Family Medicine has already went and identified Dr. Valia to be the doctor that they would send up. That is the same amount charged for physical as last year, which is $38 per physical. Questions on that item? Okay. Next, moving on the agenda, letter E, educational software for guiding instruction renewal. That is an online assessment that we use in grades K through 2. The teachers use, and the total amount for that renewal is $2,030. Questions?
I'm sure that's about the same too, correct?
Actually, Mr. Grimaldi.
Other questions on that? Okay, next, under buildings and grounds, just for your information, we are looking at the antenna that is on top of the elementary gym roof. That is how we received our internet service in the past. However, we no longer use that. As you recall, fiber was put into the district last summer, August, right before school started. So we have a fiber line directly connected to the district. So we no longer need that antenna. Right now, Mr. Dalton Muscatello and I are working with the IU to determine how we're going to remove that antenna. We're actually, Mr. Wagner at the IU will be asking the county if they can have any use of that antenna for the project that they are setting out to do, and that is to provide internet access more throughout the county. So we will be back to you as to what we will do with that. We don't want to leave it there unless it's going to be utilized for something in our community. Right now, you all need to know that antenna that's standing on that roof is not doing anything for us currently. So, and if we are not going to do anything for it, then we're going to have it removed. Question? We'll be back to you to update you on that. Okay.
If we were to take the antenna down and salvage it or do whatever with it, is there a possibility to use it in another location throughout the campus here somewhere to expand any type of internet access, to maybe put another, you know, how we talked about putting things on buildings to expand that use throughout the parking lot, maybe use that antenna to go or place it somewhere else? Is that a possibility to use it for that?
I'll let Mr. Gramling or Mr. Muscatello answer that, but I think that that antenna is only for receiving. Am I right or am I wrong? I could be wrong.
But it wouldn't be a cost-effective means to use the structure. Okay, I just didn't want to get rid of something and then say, geez, we could have had a chance to use it.
The real possibility is to leave it where it's at and let a provider put something on it. Maybe lease that space and let a provider put something on it to help the county with broadband expansion. They contract with Salzgiver, and Salzgiver has talked about a wireless solution, and they have all the resources to do so. So the tower itself, not the equipment on the tower, but the tower itself could be used. So, and we're not going to take it down until we know.
Right. Not at that current location is what you're saying? Because is there a lease opportunity to maybe
In
have
its current
someone,
location. No, it would stay there.
it would stay there, but could we have a lease opportunity with an outfit like you just stated?
If that location is an appropriate place to, they would determine that. If it's an appropriate place to put it, yes, that's what it would say.
Because I know years ago, you know, cell towers, when that was a hot thing, that was an opportunity for folks. And I don't know if that's something to explore before we
I
salvage.
sure wish it was high enough to put a cell tower on it, because you need that right here on top of the school for sure. But it was designed to have line of sight between here and the old internet service provider's backbone. And so it was just high enough to do that. Whether or not it's high enough or in a great location for Salzgiver to put something on it to expand broadband in this area is still yet to be seen. But we certainly cannot use it for anything internally.
Just maybe something to consider as an option rather than just a total removal.
Sure.
Good thought, because actually that was our first thought. And we were talking with Mr. Wagner at the IU. He said, well, please allow me to talk with the county. And that's why we're waiting and just talking about his information. Okay, next, under buildings and grounds, letter B, we have a compressor, our chiller compressor here at the elementary is not running 100% to 100% capacity. In order to fix that, you have a proposal 6B, either in your folder or online. It's from Deacon. The total amount for that repair is $6,575. Just so you know, Mr. Dalton did obtain another quote from the floor company, which was $9,185. So the recommendation would be to utilize the Daikin. Sorry, Daikin. What's that? Daikin. Okay. Daikin to complete that repair, and the proposal again is in 6B. Questions?
Was this chiller, was it part of the ESCO work that was just recently done?
Mr. Dalton, can you answer that? you hear that
No,
question?
the chiller that we're talking about was installed in 2004 during the elementary renovation.
And I just didn't know if there was a warranty associated with that.
Any warranty that was left on that or anything?
No, it's 10 years on the unit itself, so that would have been done in 2014.
I do have a question for Mr. Dalton. Mr. Dalton, the company that's proposing to do the work, are they familiar with Dakin equipment? Are they certified, or what knowledge do they have with regard to Dakin equipment?
The company, it's actually a McQuay chiller, and McQuay was purchased by Daikin several years ago, and the part that they're putting on is a Daikin McQuay original part. So basically, anybody that would do the repair would have to purchase the part from them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions on that item? Okay. Next, moving into athletics. If you take a look at that's number 7, and we have a list of volunteers requesting to be approved by the head coaches, all within the football coach request, girls basketball coach, and cross country, as you can see, are listed there. Questions? That item? Okay, if not, we'll move to athletics, letter B, approve revisions to athletic health and safety plan. So if you take a look at the attachment 7B on page 2, just those that are in the audience, you probably know by now that last month we approved an athletic health and safety plan. When we approved those plans, both of which is an athletic plan and a district health and safety plan. Right now, we're just going to talk about the athletic health and safety plan. We mentioned that these plans will actually probably be approved and reapproved a number of times beginning prior to school, and also maybe even once school is started. So let me first indicate what the first revision is. The revision coincides with the mandate order directed by the governor, also directed to superintendents by the Secretary of Health, and also the Secretary of Education. And that would be falling in under number 6 on page 2 of the already approved agreement. The words that are underlined would be the words removed. Those that are highlighted are the ones that will be added. So let me read to you so that you know what the actual language will be. And again, this order is the order that's been directed by to us regarding face coverings. So the new language would read, face coverings are required to be worn to help decrease potential exposure to COVID-19 respiratory droplets by an infected individual. Face coverings are required to be worn by coaches, volunteers, and athletes when social distancing guidelines are not able to be met. Face coverings are to be worn to an activity or event as leaving an activity or an event, and anytime a student is not engaged in a physical activity during a workout or event. And again, that is the language that, due to the recent order directed by the governor, Secretary of Health, and Secretary of Ed, that is why that revision is listed in the athletic health and safety plan. Any questions, comments?
So we're mandated to do that, right? We have to do that.
So the mandate is a requirement. So I've already been asked this question, and we'll also actually can talk about it when we get to the district and health and safety plan. So it is a directive and an order from the governor that those are to be placed in both plans, and that both plans be renewed. And I will tell you that I've asked the question of what's the requirement consequence for someone that does not abide by the order, and I have yet to receive any information back from the Department of Ed. That request in question was sent by me an hour after the order was put out, and that was done last Thursday evening. I still don't have an answer back yet. So, so my response is there a required consequence for not wearing one? And I have to say no. There is not a consequence for not wearing face covering, but is it a requirement to have in our plans? Governor's order. Other,
Can't hear you, Darren.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It would be
One
a-
question. One question as far as the social distancing of the athletes
Yeah.
that's noted in here. Is that a PIAA requirement that we need to meet, or is this a Department of Health requirement meeting? Because there could be two separate
Correct.
guidelines provided, and also the social distancing aspect. Are we following Department of Health or CDC guidelines with social distancing?
Sure. So there currently, we have in our approved plan that we would follow the World Health Organization's distancing, which is 3 feet inside and out. You could go by the guidelines of 6 feet, but I see absolutely no mandate at this point that that has to be followed. That is a local decision of the school board and what they put in that particular plan. So right now, the regulation of the face coverings is from the governor, from Secretary of Health, and Secretary of Ed.
Thank
you. Yep. Other
If
questions?
this, if we approve this, we have responsibility. It's a policy, and we have responsibility to enforce it. Is that correct?
So that was my question, Mr. Hardesty. That's why I sent my question off to the PDE because just so you know, this actually will tie into the district health and safety plan too. As that order has been coming out, administration, I will be honest, we had very few phone calls since March 13th. But I will tell you, when this order was put out, all those calls doubled within the past few days because comments of parents are, if that's going to be the requirement, then my child will not be participating. So I will tell you that, again, I've asked for, if you have given us an order as administration, what is the consequence that you would like to make sure takes place? And I have yet to have an answer to that.
I understand that you haven't got an answer from the state, but if we're saying it, if the school's saying it, I mean, isn't that our responsibility to do it? I know we're required to make this plan, but we're making the plan and then we're saying it doesn't matter. It's what I'm getting out of it. Let me ask this. Can we reasonably expect sports to take place this year? I've heard that, there's concerns. I have concerns. You hear about universities, schools, Is it the most prudent thing for Penns Manor to do to continue with sports during this epidemic?
That is a question, and you can make that decision based on a board. I will tell you right now, right directly from PIAA, they are actually meeting this week. We've been told by superintendents that by July 31st, PIAA will release guidelines and regulations. So again, as we're looking at this actual plan this evening, I am quite sure when those new guidelines or requirements or regulations come out, that we will be changing this again for our August board meeting.
Back on the spring sports, we had approved everyone, and therefore they were paid. Have we passed that point for the fall sports?
Could you ask that question again?
In the spring sports, we had hired them, and
That's
therefore, that's correct. What have we hit that point in the fall sports? If, let's say, fall sports is no longer allowed, are we to pay these coaches?
I would say that you would not be paying the coaches currently. The first official day of practice for this coming school year is August 10th. So until August 10th, they are not officially in that position. They are in a position, but I mean, the actual sport is not taking place for the fall till then. I will tell you the things that are going on now is all workouts and things and choices that coaches are doing on, I can say, on their own with their individual groups to prepare for the season. But the first official day is not until August 10th.
Is the Penns Manor plan being followed during all these unofficial activities?
Yes, I do know that temperature checks are being done when groups are meeting. I will say that even today, or was it yesterday, as a basketball group was entering the high school, I saw a coach sitting right outside, taking temperatures, asking the questions in the plan that we've asked him to do.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
How are you going to make little kids wear face masks and enforce it?
I guess we can talk about, I was going to talk more about that when we get to the district plan. I will tell you that is a great concern to administration and to a lot of parents that are calling us. And just the simple fact of it is very difficult. You've got to remember that the youngest ones coming through our door are 4, and they're here for 7 hours. Well, our 4-year-olds are here for half the day, but our kindergarten, who are 5, are here for 7 hours. And that has been our concern. And I realize that. So when it comes to the point of enforcing or the consequence for that, we're already, I will tell you as an administration, our feeling is this: we're already in a situation where, communities are upset, concerned over the whole situation. And then I just don't, honestly, as administration, put on even more weight that we're now battling a 5-year-old and a parent saying that you'll put this on and you will wear it or you won't be here. I mean, later on, I was going to talk about people going to cyber school, how they'll bankrupt this school district, because it'll happen. I will tell you, if more people go and the more that it happens, instead of trying to get us to come together and work together, if we take that stance, I will tell you right now, it will bankrupt the school district.
What stance is that? What stance?
The stance is if we would say, child, you are not going to be in this district if you don't wear that, and it's just that constant battle. And then a child gets upset, parent gets upset and says, well, if you're going to make that enforce that, then they're not going to be here.
Okay. I see. I understand. Well, does it open us up to any legal ramifications? Let's say, God forbid, somebody does get sick and they say, well, you weren't enforcing your mask requirement, and that's the reason it happened.
Is Mr. Saffron talking?
Mr. Stafford, you turned on.
I'm sorry. At this point, I think I'd be attempting to work with parents with young children to ask them to start wearing face masks at home so that they get used to that. Because if they come the first day of school and that's the first day they have to put a mask on, and you know how afraid kids are at age 4 and 5 on the first day. They're leaving their parents for the first time. It's a traumatic thing. And my thought process is to get them on board early at home and let the parent promote that, and it's going to go a lot easier. Now, to answer your question, do we have any liability? I don't know that we can be held responsible for anybody that contracts COVID-19 because it's a virus. We can do the best that we can do in sanitation, checking temperatures, making sure that people understand that if their child is sick, please don't send them to school, and that sort of thing. But right now I can't see where we would be held responsible, particularly if the state mandates that we have to have school open. We can do the best we can do, but as a practical matter with young kids, I would hope we would promote now that parents start with the face mask at home so that it goes a little bit more smoothly first couple weeks of school.
You know, I find it hard to believe we're debating whether or not we enforce this when for the entire district, teachers, everyone, every employee, every student, when in retrospect, we had a whole set of rules and peanut police when we had one student. We are putting every student and employee and every parent that comes at this school at risk. And it is a deadly situation. And I just can't believe that we're going to say, well, we may not be able to do it. I think we all want to be safe, and we have to do everything that's possible. This is a national, a worldwide pandemic, and here we're saying, well, we may not do that rule. I put to the administration, what if a kindergartner has to have peanut butter? It's the same thing. A person can't bring a snake to school because they have a affinity for snakes. Mr. Johnson, you used that basic thing when we talked about peanuts. Are we really going to put everybody's health possibly at risk because we're afraid some won't do masks and how parents are responding? The parents, what if a bunch of parents come and says, we're bringing peanuts back to school? What the heck are we going to do then?
I
Good.
agree with you, John.
Good question. I will just say to you, it is not an easy decision, and it's based, and I am 100% understanding what you're saying, Mr. Hardesty. I don't know how to sit here as a superintendent and tell you how to balance what will occur. I have no problem. I have no problem asking the administration to put in the discipline code a consequence for not wearing a mask, because when you make a requirement, that's what you typically do. And that's exactly what I asked PDE. I said, you know, when you make a requirement of something and someone doesn't follow it, there's typically a consequence. I know what will happen, and because I've heard from parents is that I won't send my child. Okay. And I understand that. I mean, it's all a matter of choice. I get it. I want everyone to be safe. I don't know how to sit here and tell you all as a board how to balance putting that into action and also not jeopardizing financially what will happen. So I will be perfectly honest with you. I don't have the answer for you tonight to tell you how to come up with that balance. And maybe that's wrong of me, but I'm speaking with honesty. I do not know how to create that balance. And by certainly in August, if we want that to take place, we will have a consequence related to that. But in turn, you all have to understand this, that also to this order, there are people that are not going to be required. So it's any individual that has a medical condition. The next thing is I can't, or any administrator can ask anyone if they about that medical condition or produce anything to show. So, and all of these are the different battles that we're trying to come to this administration and say, what are we supposed to do when already in that order are those different items? We also, in addition to those items of people that don't have to wear them, wear a face covering, are the other group of individuals contacting us and saying, listen, I just can't do that to my 5-6-year-old. So I'm going to choose not to be here. I'm just saying in turn, when all of that takes place and individuals choose to remove their students from the building, I would hope they would choose our cyber school, which completely shifts dollars. But in turn, they also can go to the 7 or 8 other cyber schools in the state. And I just want to remind everyone that when that happens, that cost per student, even though it is advertised and it's currently being advertised in the Indiana Gazette and everywhere right now, cyber schools are open and ready to help. that cost per student for us will be it range from $14,000 to $27,000 for each child that walks out the door and goes to one of those cyber schools. I don't know and can't give you the answer to how to balance that, because if I go to and enforce the safety, which I know safety needs to come first, I'm just saying I don't have an answer to come back to all of you to say, what will we do in a year? So for example, it's 27,000. If we have 10 special education students, that is the amount of money that's added on top of the $900 and some $1,000 deficit budget that we just approved. So I'm just saying, it is a community decision. It is a school district decision. We need to understand that. And if you want that enforced, that is my job. And I will tell administration to do that. I'm just wanting to make sure we all understand that before we go through approving plan or approving a consequence, what could even be a consequence or a repercussion of that all taking place. And if we understand that and we're all okay with that, by all means, that is my job as the superintendent to say to the administrators, this is what's going to happen.
Darren, just personally from me to you, I totally understand your position, and I don't envy you one bit.
Sure.
And I don't envy any superintendent that has these decisions to make. That's not what I meant when I said I agree. But what I'm saying is, for as many students as you have saying they're not going to come if their student has to wear a mask, you're going to have students saying, parents saying, I'm not sending my child to school if they're not wearing masks, because some people take this very seriously,
Sure.
as I think they should. I don't think it's a joke. I don't think it's being blown out of proportion. I fear that what's going to happen in the fall, not just with our school district, but all over the place, I think we're going to have a bigger resurgence of this than we have right now. And then we're going to be, regardless, we're going to be in another mess like we were another shutdown. So I get what you're saying. It's very hard because I think it's been dumped on local. At first it went to the states, now it's going to the local level. So we have to make the decision. And it's not an easy decision to make. But what I'm saying is we can't, and I'm not saying you are, but we can't look at it saying, well, those people think it's ridiculous to wear a mask, so it must be ridiculous, because you have the people on the other side
Sure.
too.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So it is very
Correct.
hard to
Correct.
balance.
And I agree with you. So you need to understand that, parents deciding that sending students into our brick and mortar schools, there could be two reasons. One, totally, absolutely concerned over COVID-19. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The second is another group that's saying, listen, one, I don't understand for the reason. Second, I just can't understand how my student or child's going to wear it for that long. And then and this is their question to us. What's going to happen to them? Right now, I can't say what's going to happen to them because we have not put it in our discipline code. And I will tell you, it's very difficult for me to sit here and say, again, knowing the business aspect of it, I get it, and the health and safety, I don't know how, and it's the first time, and I emailed this to you, it's the first time that I do not know how to bring the two together. I'm going to be honest with you. Again, it is a mandate to be in, and if you feel that, I will just tell you, in order for something to be required in a mandate, there has to be a consequence. There has to be. So we have to understand, well, what is that consequence? I don't know. All of our other consequences range from this: no VPA, detention after school, sent home for the day, sent home for 3 days, expelled. What does that raise to of someone not wearing a mask or a face covering? And again, we can bring that to you in August to approve handbooks and things of that. But I would like open discussion or sending us emails as to what level you would like that placed as a consequence for not wearing a face covering. Because I'll be honest with you, unless there's a consequence, there's nothing for us to do. There isn't. And that is exactly why I asked the Department of Education as to what is it that you're recommending that we use. And again, I was answered on 2 of my other questions that was sent to PDE. This one I was not. And again, it's been a week. So it's here in front of us. So it's a directive. I agree. When you make it a requirement, there should be a consequence. We have to sit here as administration and 9 members representing the community and decide what is the consequence to make sure that that's enforced. So I'm open. Sure.
If someone's talking, I can't hear.
You want to go to that microphone down there? Mr. Hardesty, we're sending her to a mic. Mrs. Eglin.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Hardesty. Mr. Johnson, am I correct when I say that we are not permitted, however, to ask any parent or any child the reason why they are not wearing one?
Correct. So we are not to approach and ask any medical reason for them not wearing one. Yes. Which also takes your left arm and puts it behind your back. I mean, that's where we are.
I'm not questioning y'all. Where does that? Is that in the mandate, or where does that requirement come from?
Yes. So that actually was in the question and answers to the order. And the answer was that those that have medical conditions are not required to wear them, and we are not permitted to ask for the evidence of that. So I'm going to be perfectly honest. So here's what would happen. And again, this is how we deal with things all the time, and I know it's frustrating. So you have a student and a parent that approaches us as administration and say, well, the reason they're not wearing it is because of a medical reason. We can't ask for proof.
I know this is a rhetorical question, but if we have a student that needs to have an inhaler, we have to know that. We have to have the reason. Is that correct?
So they turn that in on their actual emergency care card. That is correct.
You know, it's a health and safety issue. It's not a social issue. I do appreciate what everyone's going through. You know, I bet we'll have students come no matter what and do it. And I will say 100% of the people that I've talked to have said they probably, they'll question if we don't wear masks. Now, 100%, that being said, that represents 2 students. I'm interested, is the dog wagging the tail wagging the dog right now? How many folks do we really think will leave? You know, the question was asked earlier in the shutdown, would folks start to migrate to cyber school? And the thought was, no, they won't. The parents want their kids out of the house. Those that, you have said in the past, you being administration, the board has said, the majority of folks a lot of folks that go to cyber school are because of disciplinary actions, a few religious, a few of those. But is the tail wagging the dog at this point? Let's not say consequences. Are we having a few vocal folks scaring our district?
That is a good question. But if you would like more information, I have no problem of surveying the entire district to ask that question so that we have the facts right back in from a survey.
You know, if I'm asked a question, just point blank, you know, do you want to have sun tomorrow or not? You know, maybe it is proper to do. I don't know. Would you say a quarter of the district is saying I'm not sending my kids? Is it half the district? Is it terribly overwhelming, or is it a small group? Less than a quarter, 10%.
Well, I would feel in order to give you that direct answer, we will distribute a survey at the beginning of the week.
Aaron, I'm asking you point blank, if I could, I'd look you in the eye. How many folks have contacted someone thus far to say that they will pull out and go to cyber school if we require masks? That's a simple question.
So far, calling me and emailing me, 8 different parents.
And how many students do we have? That's my point. We're having so many of these few that have concerns, but the silent majority doesn't. So maybe it is a what you call it. Yes, I'm concerned about the rights and beliefs of those 8 parents, but I worry about all of our other students. That's my concern.
I understand. And I just want you to know the 8 that I'm responding are the 8 to me. I would have to ask the other administrators how many they each had to give you an honest answer.
I'm going to be rough then. That information should have been gathered before this meeting to talk about putting, in my opinion, others at risk. That is some information that I think the board ought to be told via email or whatever. This, I want everyone to be safe. And if somebody has to go to cyber school, if we do this and say we do it because we don't want to go to cyber school, then we need to quit having detention and going to the magistrate and getting folks fined, because you all said that's why a lot of folks go to cyber school. It's got to be the same, and we're not treating that the same. We're okay to throw someone out of school or make them, in their mind, feel they're going to show us, and you said that. Folks do it to show that, they got the power. I don't know if there will be a great exodus. I don't know if there will be. There very well could be, but we're letting the wrong information guide this whole horse.
Okay, we can do one of 2 things. We can have policy ready for August, the consequence to not wearing the mask, and or I can have the survey, which goes out to every single parent in the community asking. And I don't know if that helps you all making a decision with a survey, or if you think that doesn't help you making a decision. And again, if you tell us as a board, no, we're putting this in, it's the safety and health of everyone that's involved. You come to us August with all the handbook changes. And in those handbook changes, we also want to see what is the course of action. That is your input to me. It's my job to come back.
We usually don't ask each other this type of thing, but I believe Mr. Plenick and Dr. Boston are the 2 that have students in school, and Dr. Boston is medical. How do you all feel about that, with having students in school, taking care in high school or junior high type athletics and elementary athletics? What do you 2 feel about that, having parents or children in school?
Well, John, I can answer that question. As far as the mask wearing goes, if it's a requirement and my kids are going to school here, they wear a mask. If there's an enforcement aspect of it and they don't wear one, they suffer the consequence. Do I personally feel that 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week, a mask needs to be worn everywhere? No, because we have social distancing aspects even included in our plan. So that's the difficult part that I deal with. But would I feel safe sending my kids here? Sure. I would feel safe in that regard because they would wear a mask. Now, if it's a recommended, they may wear a mask, they may not. It's a choice that they have. And it's one of those things that I always look at and say, that's the choice. Safety is a concern for sure, but you have to have that responsibility to say, am I in a safe condition? If you don't feel like you're in a safe condition, then you don't attend. Okay. And if it's running rampant with COVID infections at our school here, then am I going to be wise to send my child to this school? No, nobody would. You would have to make a determination and say, I need to do something else. But as it stands right now, with the condition that we're in, I would feel safe sending my kids here because they would wear a mask if they're required to, they would. It's as simple as that.
Appreciate that input.
John, regardless of how I feel, how I do feel is that we can't really put a consequence to it because there's really no way to enforce the mandate. So you can put it in there, but every kid that doesn't want to wear a mask basically does not have to wear a mask because they could get a note from their parents stating that they have medical condition. That's correct, right?
Correct. Yes, they could.
So it's I think it's kind of early on to even be talking about what we're going to do because at this point we can't really do anything. You can put it there and you can feel, it doesn't matter how I feel or you feel, you just can't really enforce it. So you can't make a consequence for something that you can't make somebody do. So Darren's in a tough spot. And in his defense, I know he's only gotten 8 responses that were concerned, but I'm sure that's only 8 that came out. So we really have no idea where everybody is without doing a district-wide survey or something in regards to that. But I just think it's impossible to, we sit here and talk about it all night, but we can't do anything about it. Regardless of how we personally feel, I'm sure we have differences amongst all of us here, but, and I agree with Rich. I would feel comfortable regardless sending my child here, both my children here. So the sports too, I think they should continue. It's how do you socially distance? And luckily, largely the school age children don't seem to be, quite as vulnerable as some of the other populations, which is, also, a good thing. That's
One thing too to add, John, is as I look at this and I mean, we can't even get our arms around it at this small community we live in, let alone the world. Okay. And as Jill had alluded to earlier, that it's been pushed down to a local level. If enforcement was that critical and everybody was serious about it, there would be from the office administration, at least from the state level, guidance on how that enforcement occurs. There would be a law written directly that would be enforced. But you just can't throw it out and say, well, locally you decide. You can't do that because our consequence may differ from Marion Centers, may differ from Purchase Lines, may differ from Westchester's Philly. So that starts to separate school districts rather than try to have districts come together and try to resolve this. That's the difficult part that everybody has to try to capture. So, I mean, it's tough to say because I know that the Office of Administration, the governor's office, has a lot of frequently asked questions websites, and it changes daily on multiple questions about mask wearing, social distancing, their requirements. That's why I asked the question earlier, Mr. Johnson, about what social distancing guidelines are we following? CDC, World Health Organization. There's a lot of information out there. And it's tough for us to get our hands around this right now. But I think if I look at a bigger picture, if we require enforcement of this, and maybe the 8 people turn into 68 people that decide to leave and go to cyber, that kills the budget. Now we have a bunch of staff that doesn't have any kids to work with to teach. What do we do there? I think we'd have to reevaluate our staff and faculty then if that occurs. So we start running down a road of does Penns Manor School District exist? And that's a long road, but it's one that we have to consider because it comes soon enough. That's the way I feel about things right now. It's a tough position for everybody to be in. we can bounce this around as much as we can, but I know that these guidance documents change daily, hourly. I live at my current job. This changes frequently. So I think what we have to do, it's a living document. It's going to continue to evolve. And if we put an enforcement clause that requires our teachers or administrators to be policemen, then they're no longer teachers. They're policemen. Because I can tell you it's a cat and mouse game. I live it every day between wearing a mask, not wearing a mask. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Do you have a medical condition? Nope, you're 6 feet apart. No, you're 3 feet apart. No, you're 15 feet apart. Constantly change. I wish we only had 25 people to deal with, but we don't. And that's reality. And I understand your point, John, and the concerns of all with safety and wanting to be safe. It's a tough thing to deal with. It creates a lot of separation. Anywhere you go, if you don't have a mask on, you have people look at you a certain way. If you do have a mask on, you have people look at you a certain way. So I'm not exactly sure. What do? You know, if you want to, you know, continue to have a vibrant school and a learning experience, I'm not sure if an enforcement aspect of it is in that equation. Because I can tell you, if it becomes a cat and mouse game and there's disruption in the school with my kids being here, they're not learning. That's not learning environment. That's a policing environment, and it's a disruption. And when there's a disruption, there's no longer learning that occurs. And I have to make a decision then on what I need to do in order to provide for my kids in a safe learning environment. That's how I view it.
I appreciate the dialogue. I really do. I appreciate
Just go ahead over to Mike so Mr. Hardesty can hear you.
Not hearing.
Sorry, I just wanted to chime in real quick as a mother of a very busy 6-year-old. Anytime we go somewhere, my son's mask becomes a blindfold. It becomes a beard. It's hanging from his ear. It's on the back of his head. He messes with it constantly. And I'm trying to get him to wear one when we go places so he's used to it. It ends up that I spend the entire time saying, get your mask on, quit touching your face, get your hands down. So from the parent aspect of it, he definitely is messing with things more than he would when he doesn't have it on, obviously, but he's going into 1st grade, and that's a concern I have as a parent, is because it is constantly, I know he's not going to pay attention because he messes with it, and he chews on it from the inside. He drives me crazy with it. From the administrator side, I have 2 concerns, is that number one, when I go to discipline a student for not wearing a mask, my concern is that I'll tell the kid they have to put a mask on, and as soon as I do, they tell me why I have, and it can either be a medical, a social, or an emotional problem, and we cannot ask for documentation. So my concern is that as soon as I say you're not wearing a mask, unless I have any clause to dig into it, he can say it gives me anxiety, or I have an emotional problem, and and then I can't ask any further questions. According to the guidance, it simply states that they do not have to provide any documentation. So again, I agree with Mr. Boston and Mr. Polenick. My concern is that I don't know how we put a consequence for the ones who are, don't have the medical conditions, but the ones who do have no consequence for it. So, I mean, that's just my concern as an administrator, and my concern as a parent, because I know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I still make my son wear the mask, but I end up, it's definitely by the end of just going into the grocery store, I'm ready to take the mask and like duct tape it to his face. So just wanted to share my experience on both sides of the coin.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I'm done.
So I would ask, and Mr. Hardesty, I'm always open and honest, even when I'm wrong. So you may be saying, well, why wasn't that data collected? Because it kept weighing in my mind as I would collect that data. Am I encouraging people to leave the brick and mortar school? So that is the exact reason why I have not done that with this administration group yet, because I'm always the type that I would love people to come together and come open honestly and say, let's try to solve a problem within the brick and mortar school and move forward. So I kept having on the one side of me saying, absolutely, collect that data. The other side of me would say, listen, you also, and this is terrible to say, in a superintendent's position, you have to look at safety, you have to look at education, and you have to look at the financial piece. And so when I look at all three of those, and I know it is difficult, and that is the reason that I have not asked our administration to collect that data yet, because I would want people to try to work with me as a superintendent, with us as administration, with us as a small school district with 800 students, pre-K through 12. I just feel that we can come to the consensus of it. Do I know that I have people out there that is very, very afraid? Absolutely. And I'm not here to lay judgment on any of that whatsoever, because everyone has their own concerns. Everyone has their own families. Everyone has their own medical needs. I get it. But looking at as the superintendent and looking at safety, education, and financially, I don't have the immediate answer to tell you how to solve all three of those pieces in this particular situation. But listening to comments that you've all made, it would help you in knowing what the exact proportion of percentages of all 800 students would be with that. Now, if you disagree, let me know that, but I have no problem at the beginning of the week putting that particular survey together and putting it out.
What kind of question would you ask? Will you leave us and go to cyber school? Or would you ask the simple question, how do you feel about your child being required to wear a mask?
I think we would ask the first right off the bat. I think we have to ask the question right up front. With the requirements and our safety plan intact, are you prepared and feeling comfortable sending your students to brick and mortar school? I would also emphasize the fact that we do have our own cyber school, which is what I wanted to talk, but let's just blend them together, is that by all means, if a parent is making a decision that they feel more comfortable of educating their students, not in this particular facility, I would like them to choose our cyber school.
Sure.
Because first of all, Mr. Muscatello put some statistics for us together today. Listen, when you take a look at the performance of tests in ELA, math, biology, our graduation rate, all of our percentages are higher than any cyber school that's in the state. So I'm not quite sure if anyone's already made that decision or planning to make that decision to go to an outside cyber school, why you would not choose ours. And every administrator in this district is willing to talk to any parent that's in the position right now that they feel like that their child will not be safe in this brick and mortar school. Why would you not work with us and come to ours? In turn, some just swiftly making the decision to go elsewhere because we have advertisement in our media that it's free. I just need to point out that anybody that's on YouTube listening, it is not free. If you take our cyber school, it will cost an approximately additional $2,000 to the district. That's the one I would prefer that you would take. Two reasons. One, it's more financially sound for the district. Second, we have higher test scores. We have higher graduation rate than any of the outside cyber schools that you will be selecting. Second, if you choose to go to an outside cyber school, absolutely, their advertisement, and we've had this conversation before, it is free to the parent. Free direct cost to you, but it is not going to be free to the property owner of this district. Because guess what? If we have students that migrate to those outside cyber schools, again, every child that leaves us to go to any cyber school besides ours will cost this district, if they're a regular ed student, $14,000. If they are a special education student with an IEP or a GIEP, they will be $27,000 that this district will pay to that outside cyber school. And you may say, as a parent listening, well, that doesn't hit my wallet. It will hit your wallet. This board had a very tough decision on a budget. We could see that. over $900,000 deficit. If I come back to you in December and add another $500,000 because of students shifting to an outside cyber school instead of our own, this will bankrupt the district. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It will just totally bankrupt the district. And honestly, I am proud of the school that we have. We are a small rural school that I would put us up against anyone else with the programs that we have from pre-K. I mean, when we get evaluated, we have perfect marks. We have dual enrollment. We have associate's degree. I mean, for a small school, I am proud, and that's exactly why I live in it. So I would ask people to make sure that if you are to the point that you are afraid to send your child to this brick and mortar building, that you pick up the phone and you talk to an administrator and talk to us about our cyber school. Please do not bankrupt this school district and go to an outside cyber school, because that's exactly what you're doing. When you do that, you won't have the support that we will give you. You will cost this district more money, and we can provide you with the exact same thing that you're going to an outside cyber school that got your attention just because they publicized in the open media.
Thank you, Darren.
Yep. So we will do a survey at the beginning of the week, and we'll make sure that it's out. We won't wait until the board meeting. As soon as we collect the answers to those, and by all means, even before we put the survey out, we will share the questions with you as board so that you can help with input into the questions, because honestly, I want the survey to mean something to all of us. And if there's something that the question might not particularly be asking, I want to make sure your question's in there. So at the beginning of the week, I'll pull administrative group together. We'll come up with a survey. We'll get it mailed to you. So by the end of next week, it's out and we have answers back.
Good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions on the health and or the athletic health and safety plan?
One other quick thing.
Sure.
If you do send the survey out and we decide maybe it's not a good idea to send it out, we can tell you that too.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. And then the expiration date. When are we going to put an expiration date on the health and safety and the other safety?
I would say that we could eventually but I'm going to go back to Mr. Plennick. These are changing. The requirements, the guidelines are changing so much so often. I know for a fact, here are the things that's already coming towards us. You all know, you hear the media. We have the president already indicating that we will hand down an order that if you don't have students back in your buildings and moving forward, that possibly federal funds will be withheld. So that's still getting sifted through all the levels. Next, we are being told that CDC will put out new guidelines for schools next week. So again, a change will take place. We also know that PIAA is meeting this week, and that by July 31st, they will be releasing guidelines. So trust me, I know you are all frustrated, and I know parents are frustrated. And as superintendents, we, as a group of superintendents, we talk every single day in this county. It's very, very frustrating because we're the type that likes to plan and have a course of action in place so you all can see it and know it. But this is one that it just, Mr. Plennick is absolutely 100% correct. It is changing every other day.
Yeah, I know we'll be changing it, but if we put an expiration date of like January 1st, 2021, even if we do change it, we keep putting the same expiration date on, just so hopefully when this is all over, it just goes away.
I agree.
I hope maybe the next change we can put an expiration date on.
And again, I want you to know, and any parent that's listening, and I won't spend so much time when we get to the district health plan because it's actually the same wording that will go in it. Please understand, as a superintendent, the health and safety of every student is the utmost of any of us as administration, as an administrator. I mean, we already have in places the things that we're going to do by socially distancing people in this room, you know, when it comes to cafeteria, how we're taking temperatures in the morning, you name it, how we're putting sanitizer everywhere, how we're going to do restroom breaks to go get your hands washed. I mean, all of those things are in place. So although I talk financially about this one aspect, I want you to know that this is not an administration that's sitting here saying that, oh, we think this is all a farce. That is not the case. So I want no one that's listening on YouTube to think that I am not a concerned superintendent for the safety and healthy. It's concerned about the safe and healthiness of their child. I get it. I have children. They've gone through this system. I would not want anyone in this district to be harmed by anything. I mean, that's just awful. So please understand, as I was talking and being pretty stern to people making a decision about going to an outside cyber school, I understand that is your decision as a parent. Please, I just ask that you communicate with us as administration to work with us and our cyber school. Please don't go out and help a private group make money. And that's it. Other questions? Okay. Let me see. So that was 7B. We have nothing under transportation, nothing under public relations, policy, correspondence. So let's move to new business. So this is another one I didn't mention. So we're asking this evening that you give us permission to advertise for 2 4-hour cleaners. Again, those new positions will be so that we have individuals in our buildings during the day, actually just going through and following up in restrooms, high touch places within our district throughout the day. And that will be funded through our CARES funds that we've received this within the CARES funds grant. Any questions on that? Next, 12B, approve agricultural resource person for the 2021 school year. We do have a letter as an attachment in the packet or online, a letter from Mr. Repick. So it's our recommendation that he be hired as an ag resource person for next school year. Any questions on that one? Next, 12C is a retroactive approval of an agreement with the 2080 Media Incorporated Play on Sports. Actually, that is also a handout either online or in your folder there. Again, this is another measure that we're taking because we don't know what we're going to face. It's providing, and it's the total amount of $3,500. And it's to install 2 units, cameras in the high school gymnasium, 2 at the stadium. And that will provide the opportunity for anything that we do in those 2 locations to be viewed online. Any community member or parent will be able to subscribe to be able to view anything that we would have in those locations. Total cost for subscription is $69.99 a year. That equals out, of course, to $5.83 if you spread it out over the 12 months. Or if you're paying by month option, it is $10.99 a month. And again, we'll get that information out. And again, you also need to understand if you're on YouTube or even as a board. So we're even looking at those locations, not only of extracurricular activities that we want to do, but that will actually provide 2 large areas that if there's anything that we want to do with our district, we can go into those 2 spaces and we can actually put that out for everyone to view, whether that be, a commencement, whether that be a homecoming event when our large groups are now limited to 250. Maybe we do get to a point that we have a basketball game in the gym. But again, we're limited to 250. Other people can actually watch live right from our gymnasium or our stadium. So that is the reason for us asking you to approve that. And again, that's being paid for through the CARES grant. Questions?
Just one. It's a 2,000.
Sure. Yep. Okay. So if you actually look through that agreement, the total amount for installation of the 2 units totals $2,000. But then if you go through that agreement, there was an option of the district receiving a revenue back. And if the district goes ahead and pays an addition, the $1,500 fee, revenue back to the district for all the subscribers starts immediately. If you don't, then it kicks that revenue from each subscriber out further in the 5-year agreement. So it's our recommendation to go ahead and pay the fee so that the revenue for subscribers instantly starts when we start.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does the CARE Act money take care of the whole 5-year agreement?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it takes care of
all
everything.
3,500.
Okay. Is the whole 5-year agreement? Okay.
questions on that one? Okay. And also now moving to 12D, approve revisions to the district health and safety plan. I will tell you, and just want to remind those that's on YouTube, and it is posted to the website, our district health and safety plan, and that we have a green, yellow, and red phase. And of course, if we're in the red phase, our county, we are totally 100% remote learning. I want to remind anyone that's listening, we do have in place a lot of equipment that we can certainly now shift so that we can do things such as this meeting. Actually, all the microphones and everything, that is all new to us, along with, and I want to remind everyone that we have purchased, and they are all here physically, a Chromebook for every student that we will assign to every student that's enrolled in our district. So just want to make sure that those types of things are reminded of you that's in that plan. So the revision actually is, again, incorporating the language of the requirement of wearing a face covering, and that would be required in the green phase when we open up in on August 26th, bringing all students back in. It is also a requirement that's added to the yellow phase, and the yellow phase incorporates a staggering schedule, which means we would take 50% of our population to come in to our brick and mortar building, or brick and mortar buildings 2 days a week, and another group the other 2 days of the week, leaving our Wednesday open for those students to come in that's also having difficulty with internet access. So picture this, we have to be ready, just as this plan will transition, we have to be ready to transition. So we, to be quite honest, it is important for all of our students to come at the beginning of the school year, because we have to do all kinds of household training, pre-K through 12 now, everywhere from what we want them to do as to washing hands, using hand sanitizers, to keeping the distance, talking and about the requirement of face masks, to actually having their new Chromebook. This district has not put in the hands of every child in the past a one-on-one device. That will happen now. We have to also work with our teachers to so that they understand that we've got to be ready at any point in time, that when we switch and the need is there, that we're ready to move from green phase to yellow phase to red phase and maybe back and forth. So I do feel that as administration and you as the board have allowed us to put the plans in place, have equipment in place to the best of our ability. I know the internet access and still in some rural places is not ideal, but I think as a district and what we're capable of doing, providing that one-on-one device, putting the internet access on the exterior of our buildings that people can come to our parking lots, that is all addition that this district certainly did not have. So we have definitely made a big switch since March 13th. So again, this item is listed on there for the revision of adding the language that we also talked about in the athletic health and safety plan. It would also be incorporated into this plan under both the green and the yellow phase. Questions?
There, one question I have with the Chromebooks, when we give them to every student, as far as their responsibility, it's school property, and do we have anything written down as far as if it's lost, if it's stolen, if it's damaged, and who's responsible for that replacement cost?
Yes, we'll have you approve all that along with student handbook changes. Actually, Mr. Gramling's going through all that now, even to the point of we'll have actually individual insurance that people can purchase to cover for any damage or broken device. Yeah, we'll have all that in front of you in August.
And then as far as the yellow and green phases and the transportation for the students to come to school, is that going to require additional buses, and how does that impact us as far as trying to keep that spacing on the buses?
So just so you know, so what we do have in our plan right now is to make sure that there's no more than 2 students in a seat. If we want to have more social distancing than that, so that would be, again, me as a superintendent saying to children, there are going to be 2 in a seat. You need to be wearing a face covering because that honestly, of anything in this district, we've talked as administration. I feel confident and comfortable within our building. It's the bus. And we have already spoken with Tri-County that the three buses actually that had 3 folks in a seat, 3 children in a seat, that won't happen. That they are to reorganize, and it can happen by not adding buses. That there will be no more than 2 students in a seat. And again, to parents, if that is the one item that bothers individuals, by all means, we'll set up even new ways for parents to come in if that helps. If it's more comfortable that I just don't feel comfortable that there's 48 students on a bus. But to be quite honest, I think that's only going to be 2 buses in the whole district anyway. But I will get you those exact numbers. But we're to the point that I think we have 2 buses that'll be at 48 and everything else will be less.
But it doesn't require additional buses.
It
per
does not.
se, Unless
does not.
there's requirements that change.
That's true too. Unless
Okay.
there's requirements that change. I
It
always have
says
to put that.
one student per seat,
Correct.
every other seat.
Correct. If that happens, you're exactly right. That would increase cost too.
Darren, I have a
Yes,
question
sure.
about the buses.
Sure.
I believe I read in here earlier about how they're responsible for keeping the buses
Yes.
sanitized, I think
Yes.
twice a day.
Yes.
Is anybody going to be making sure that they're doing that every day, twice a day?
Sure. I will make sure. I will. I definitely will. Actually, Tri-County has purchased the exact equipment that we have for sanitizing. We actually have devices for spraying disinfectant. And all we did was suggest to them the equipment and the product, and they have purchased it.
I didn't know if somebody in charge will be
Sure.
supervising that and making sure that this is being done.
And I will certainly have that face-to-face conversation again with Tri-County. I will tell you this, that I can even periodically even question the bus driver because I will be part of the group that's doing temperature checks in the morning when we have individuals getting off buses and vans. So yes, and any one of us as administrator can certainly ask to make sure that's being done.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions, concerns? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order for the committee meeting? Again, I just want to remind those that's listening on YouTube that we typically do have these meetings separate. So if it's what we regularly do, we would actually be stopping right now and ending for the night. However, we are doing the committee and business meeting together this evening. So before we move to the business meeting, are there any questions, comments on anything that would appear on the business agenda? Every item that I talked about has a motion on the business agenda except for the antenna on the roof. Anything else before we move to the business meeting? Sure. Yep. Go ahead. This is Tate.
I had mentioned that.
Sure. Absolutely.
Can you repeat the question, please? Or the comment? I didn't hear it.
Sure. You want to go to that microphone right down at the end and just push the button so it turns to green?
John, all I was doing was just trying to get a clarification of some comments during the meeting for my own edification and notes. That's all. Nothing changed from the meeting, from the discussion.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we begin the business meeting? Okay, Mr. Belcher, all yours.
Okay. This business meeting of the Penn Manor Board of Education will now take place. Please, oh no, Josh, roll call. I think that's what it said. Here,
Try that again. Sorry, Mr. Belchick,
here,
Dr. Boston,
Here.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Here.
Mr. Hardesty,
Here.
Mr. Larch,
Here.
Mr. Plenick,
Here.
Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Mrs. Tate,
Here.
Mr. Packer is excused. I am here. Mr. Johnston, here. Mrs. Dolgeth, she responded with here. Mrs. Eglin also responded with here. Mr. Grimaldi, Grimaldi is here. Mr. Dalton,
Here.
Dalton is here. Mr. Gramley also responded as here, and Mr. Saffron.
here. Thank you, Josh. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic stands.
I'd just like to point out, there are two flags in here, but I was looking at the other one. No great presentations. Do we need any changes to the agenda?
We should not.
Okay. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Dr. Boston.
Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Plenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
motion carries.
And citizens' remarks, minutes of all meetings. Could we have a motion to approve the minutes as printed?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Belchick, a second by Mrs. Williams.
That was me, Josh.
Oh my gosh, sorry. A motion by Mr. Plenick. Thank you.
Any questions? Roll call, Joel?
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Plenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
motion carries.
The next item, the business report. Could we have a motion to approve the financial reports as printed?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
The motion by Dr. Boston, a second by Mr. Larch.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Plenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, presentation of bills. We have general fund for 2019, 2020, $107,184.22. For 2021 or 2020, 2021, for the general fund, we have bills of $34,337,052. For the athletic fund, for 2019, 2020, we have bills of $287.60. Would we have a motion to authorize payment of the bills?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Tate, a second by Dr. Boston.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Plenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there any program updates? Reports? Those just had a committee meeting.
Well, let me just explain if anybody's listening on YouTube. Again, usually these meetings are separated, and there I go and review the agenda and any other new items. So I won't take any more of anyone's time. I think we went down through every single item for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. And for high school activity account, please see the attached. Is there any old business? Moving on to negotiations committee, Mrs. Eckenrode.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Belcher.
Thank you, Mrs. Eckenrode. Curriculum committee, Mrs. Williams.
Yes, to approve student 330033 to be promoted to kindergarten. I'd like to make a motion to grant administration permission to waive the requirements of policy 201 to allow student 330033 to be promoted to kindergarten due to completing pre-K during the 2019-2020 school year.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Mrs. Williams and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Also, Ignite Educational Solutions Agreement. I'd like to make a motion to approve an agreement with Ignite Educational Solutions for the 2020-2021 school year as presented as part of our Title I non-public services at Northern Cambria Catholic School in the amount of $5,039.34.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Williams and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Lastly, to approve dual enrollment agreement with Mount Aloysius. I'd like to make a motion to approve a dual enrollment agreement as presented with Mount Aloysius College for the 2020-2021 school year and to authorize the appropriate board officers to execute the agreement on behalf of the district. The tuition cost is $60 per credit and will be paid directly to Mount Aloysius by the student.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Williams and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes,
Motion carries.
that is all.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. The next item, budget and finance, that would be me. Approve Microsoft license program enrollment. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Microsoft license program enrollment for education solutions agreement for licensing all Microsoft devices, services, and servers for the 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024 school years at a cost of $7,662.60 as presented. We have seconds.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Belchick and a second by Mrs. Williams.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item, approve coach digital renewal. I'd like to make a motion to approve a one-year access renewal with Coach Digital for the use of online programs for the high school at the cost of $3,998 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Belchick and a second by Mr. Larch.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item, approve Edgenuity renewal. I'd like to make a motion to renew the agreement as presented with Edgenuity for a concurrent user license virtual classroom and web administrator, allowing the Penns Manor area Cyber Academy access to all Edgenuity courses and world languages for a total cost of $6,674. This agreement will run from July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. I made the motion.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Belchick and a second by Dr. Boston.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item, approved school physician for 2020-2021. I'd like to make the motion to approve Clymer Family Medicine as the district's physician for the 2020-2021 school year at a rate of $38 per physical performed during the year.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Belchick and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The last item I have, approve ESGI renewal. I'd like to make the motion to approve a one-year access to ESGI for the use of online assessments in the primary grade levels, Penns Manor Area Elementary School, at a total cost of $2,030 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Belchick and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And that's all I have. Moving on to Buildings and Grounds Committee, Mr. Polenick.
Approve service to compressor starter control for elementary chiller. I'd like to make the motion to approve a service agreement with Dakin Applied to complete service to a compressor starter control for the elementary chiller at the cost of $6,575.
Second.
I actually have a motion by Mr. Polenick and a second by Mr. Hardesty on that.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Belcher.
Thank you, Mr. Polenick. Moving on to Athletic Committee, Mr. Larch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Belcheck. Approve fall sports volunteers. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following as sports volunteers for the 2020-2021 school year, pending the receipt of all current clearances, cardio and impact testing, and the coaching education courses as required by PIAA. Football, Carson Ray, Bob Packer, Mark Dalton, Brad Packer, Zach Johnston, Chad Kazumchek, Andrew Packer, Lee Kazumchek, Dalton Nickel, Ernie Giles, Jeremy Hill, and girls basketball, Chad Kazumchek, cross country, Ali Garardi.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions?
Are there costs associated with volunteers?
Cost to the district, your question is, Mr. Hardesty?
Yes, yes, yes.
No, there is no cost to the district for volunteers. They actually can get their clearances as a volunteer clearance, and it doesn't also cost them anything. But no, it does not cost the district anything. Mr. Muscatella corrected me that we do pay for the coaches course that they are all required to take. Do you know what the amount of that is?
About $100.
He said it's $100 a piece.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have,
Yeah, Mr.
Motion
Belchick, I have a
seconded.
motion. Yep, I have a motion by Mr. Large
Any-
and a second by Mrs. Eckner.
any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, B, approve revisions to the athletic health and safety plan. I'd like to make the motion to approve the revisions to the athletic health and safety plans as presented.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Large, a second by Mrs. Tate.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Larch. Moving on to Transportation Committee, Mrs. Tate.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Belchick.
Thank you, Mrs. Tate. Policies, nothing. Correspondence, nothing. New business. The first item, grant administration permission to advertise for 2 4-hour cleaners. Could we have a motion to grant the administration permission to advertise for 2 4-hour cleaner positions? The 2 cleaner positions will be for the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll make the motion.
I had a motion by Mr. Hardesty. Would you like a second?
I'll second it.
Sure thing.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
The next item, approve agriculture resource person for the 2020-21 school year. Could we have a motion to appoint Stephen Repick as community resource person for the 2020-2021 school year? The hourly rate for this position is $11 per hour for 1,100 hours.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode, a second by Mrs. Williams.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Polenick,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
The next item, retroactively approve an agreement with 2080 Media Incorporated, Play On Sports. Could we have a motion to retroactively approve an agreement with 2080 Media Incorporated, Play On Sports in the amount of $3,500 to be paid by PCCD grant funds as presented. The term of this agreement shall be the first day of the 2020-2021 school year through the end of the 2025-2026 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Polenick, a second by Mrs. Tate.
Any questions? Josh?
Mr. Belchick, if I could just make one comment. As you see in the motion, we did receive 2 grants. One was the CARES Funds Grant and also PCCD. So when I was talking about this in the committee meeting, I had said it was coming from the CARES. This one was particularly coming from PCCD.
100% though, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston.
So
Do you have a question, Mr. Hardesty?
Your mic's not on, John.
there's no to the district, no $3,500. We're not paying that up front.
So the total cost is $2,000 to have the equipment installed. The $1,500 is to pay for this upfront fee. So a total of $3,500 would be the cost. That covers 5 years, and it's being paid for out of the PCCD grant.
So no cost to the district.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Plenick,
Yes.
Mrs. State,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the last item that we have, approve revisions to the district's health and safety plan. Could we have a motion to approve the revisions to the district's health and safety plan as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Williams, a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions? Josh, roll call, please.
Mr. Belchick,
Yes.
Dr. Boston,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mr. Plenick,
Yes.
Mrs. State,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our upcoming meetings, committee meeting is August 6th, 2020, and that's at 7 o'clock. Business meeting will be August 13th, 2020, and that's also at 7 o'clock. Is there any other business that needs to be brought before the board?
Mr. Belchick, if we could just, after I'm having the opportunity to answer some questions from the media, could we have Transportation Committee just stay then after that, just for some updates on that Mr. Sappin would like to share?
Okay, would that be an executive session?
Actually, just a committee meeting of the Transportation Committee.
Oh, okay, so we will have an executive session right after this meeting.
There would be none.
So, any other business? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.